In an ancient realm of dim-witted monsters and lame magic, a barbarian prince sets out on a confusing journey to rescue a terrible actress and break the curse that has turned his mother into a crazy whore. That is, if he can survive being literally trolled by the prankster goblin who raised him. We watched Ator, Quest for the Mighty Sword, today on...
The fuck is this? So Jameson, how are you progressing in your Paper Mario The 1,000-Year Door playthrough?
Oh, I'm doing fine. I just started playing that on March 10th, of the unofficial Super Mario Day, and I got to about Hooktails Castle, and then I got bored and started doing other stuff. So I haven't really touched it in a couple of days. Why do you ask, Kaz?
Well, no, because that is a game that we are playing through currently together at the same time. We are just at wildly different points in the game. I am somewhat closer to the end of the game. I agree it is a bit of a slow start. There are a couple of levels that you gotta get through before it starts getting really good.
It gets to the good stuff, yeah. I don't know, I've always found that game to be very charming, and I'm not much of a turn-based RPG player or an RPG gamer in general, but that one has a lot of endearing qualities to it, and I especially like, the context-sensitive combat aspects of it.
I've recently realized I thought I was really good at the whole timing my hammer blows and everything, but I recently revealed last night when I was playing through, it really is super context-sensitive. Like, if you hold that joystick back and you let it go just at the right moment, you deal twice as much damage. So yeah,
But also, as you get older, your hand dexterity suffers somewhat. That's why all the Major League gamers and pro gamers are all in their 18s to early 20s. They have a very narrow window where they can go pro in gaming. I had a buddy who wanted to go into competitive StarCraft because he was very good at it, but then he hit 23 and he was like, the dream is dead.
First your cuticle goes, and then the thumbs just bend back the other way, and then it's all over. Yeah. Yeah, no, I did the thing that I'm sure a lot of people have done in that game, in the Paper Mario game, where I started the pit of 100 trials, and I got halfway through, and I got the double wallet as a reward that lets me carry twice as many health mushrooms, and rather than go back up and save, I pressed on. I died about 5 floors later, and then I took an hour to process my anger, and then I went back down and I did it all again, because I just couldn't have my one, because I don't have a ton of time for video games anymore. I couldn't have my one day of video gaming result in nothing, So I played twice as long doing the exact same thing over again, just so I could say I accomplished one thing that day. But
that's just a metaphor for the futility of man. Are we a gaming podcast now?
We might be a gaming podcast now. Who knows? Welcome back, however you wish to self-identify, to The Fuck Is This, where we dive through DVD bins, sort through streaming apps to find the weird, the bizarre, and the unloved. I'm your host, Cass Lesgard, and joining me always is my co-host, Jameson Rafter.
How's it going, you sexy savages?
Oh, alright. Both complimentary and aggressive. That's what our tone is today. Alright. And today on the show, it's Jameson's Choice, so we're watching 1990's Quest for the Mighty Sword, aka Ator 4, the Hobgoblin, aka a third title, which we will get to in a minute here. I know Jameson wants to talk about that. But before we do that, let's introduce our guest. He's an actor, an improviser, and a voiceover artist. You may have seen him on shows like Project Blue Book and Snowpiercer. Bradley Duffy, welcome to the show, buddy.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Fine, thanks. Thanks for joining us.
Well, I'm pleased to be here. I am... What was it?
You asked, how's it going? And I said, all things considered, given the current never-ending hellscape that we're currently living in. But I interrupted you. What were you going to say?
Oh, yeah. I guess that's true. Whenever you ask someone how they're doing now, we should proceed that with contextually fine. I think that would save a lot of trouble, as opposed to just just a series of sounds whenever we ask how someone is.
Generally, we know how everyone's doing. It's just polite to ask, but I don't really care. Nobody really cares.
I care. Yes. I care a lot. I care too much about too many things. Causes me a great deal of stress. I care quite a bit about this movie, for example. I have no idea what I'm jumping into, which is delightful. to me.
Well, that makes two of us, Brad. I had never heard of this until Jameson mentioned it, and then the PK and I did into it. Just raised further questions. Well, we'll answer those questions in a few minutes here, but before we do that, Brad, on this podcast, we like to watch weird, bizarre, crazy movies that make you ask the question, what the fuck is this? Why did these particular actors choose to do this project? Why was this movie shot, released, and then disappeared from consciousness? Now, I know you and I used to be roommates, and I know you had one of those big books full of DVD discs that I know I spent quite a bit of time roaming through. So do you have a favorite weird, bizarre movie that you've seen in the past?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I really have a strong affection for The Forbidden Zone, although it has not aged well, for the record, in terms of sensitivity.
Cultural depictions, perhaps?
Yes, that specifically, I would say. But it's a movie, a live-action version of a 1920s Popeye cartoon, essentially. It is hard to really describe how it got made, how it is really weird, featuring Danny Elfman as the devil. Oh, man. You've seen it?
I haven't seen it, no. It's sort of an Oingo Boingo film, though, isn't it? Or is he just involved?
Oingo Boingo does the music, yes, to my knowledge. But, I mean, when Danny Elfman is the devil, they do have a very raucous sort of song that they all sing together with Oingo Boingo as the band.
Is this like a band movie, like the way that the Beatles and, like, the Bee Gees and the Monkees all had, like, a movie?
Oh, God, no. I really mean it is a fever dream of 1920s black and white weirdness. You know the video game Cuphead?
Yeah.
The movie feels like that, but with live actors going through the weirdness.
That is really hard for me to envision, actually, because, you know, the charm of those, like, old rubber hose cartoons or whatever is that it's everything's silly and everything's askewed by the look of it, and I can't imagine how that is achieved in live action.
And mildly terrifying as well.
Yeah, I think mildly terrifying is the way that it is achieved. I think when you watch it, you're confused, thrilled, a little, like I said, with modern sensibilities, a little offended. It's,
well, it sounds delightful. That is something I look forward to never checking out.
When you watch movies like this, you're like, someone took a risk. That's nice.
I'm taking a risk watching this.
Yeah.
Super briefly, Brad, a movie that I remember you owning that was a real head-scratcher for me. I remember you at one time owned a movie called Miss Castaway, which starred Eric Roberts and sort of Michael Jackson? Do you remember this movie?
Oh, God, no. But I haven't been through my DVD books in quite a long time. Streaming has fully occupied. I haven't quite delved every streaming platform.
Physical media is quite dead, yeah.
I think it'll come back eventually during the apocalypse, when the internet and electricity are a thing of the past. I think I can use my hand generator to start up the DVD player and watch a good old-fashioned movie on a physical disc.
Gather around the burning trash cans.
It'll all just be shadow puppets in like 5 years. Shadow theater is going to have a huge comeback.
Yeah.
Well, the classics always find ways of coming back.
What is that? I think it's that movie, Reign of Fire with McConaughey and the dragons, where there's like a brief scene where, it's the apocalypse and they're sitting around a campfire and there's a bunch of people telling a story to the kids, but the story is Star Wars and they're just acting it out with everything. I thought that was a rather inspired moment in a fairly forgettable action sci-fi movie.
I haven't
But
seen
I imagine it might look something like that. Us sharing the stories that we know that we can't tell or show anymore to the younger generations because there's no power and we're all huddled together for warmth.
And we'll just choose to completely omit, like, the sequel trilogy and Jar Jar Binks and all that crap. Fucking director's cut of the Star Wars movies.
I love the saga of the Star Wars, Papa. Are there any more chapters? No, only 3. Only 2.5. It cuts off after Jabba's palace. What happens after that? Nothing. Nothing happens after that.
There will be a real Council of Nicaea moment where everyone gets together and actually votes on which Star Wars movies are allowed to make it into the book that everyone follows for their life lessons.
Oh God, that would be like a fucking 12 Angry Men situation, I bet.
For anyone listening who's not familiar with the Council of Nicaea, unless I'm pronouncing that
Which includes me.
wrong, that's when everyone got together and voted on which books were going to make it into the Bible. Because there was a lot of contenders, and some of them didn't make it in.
Man, I'd love to read some of those books that didn't make the cut. Maybe one of these days they'll release Bible the Deleted Stories.
Good news, Kaz, you can look up those books that didn't make it in.
Forgotten classics. Huh.
I mean, this is now becoming a much larger conversation within our podcast.
I made a lot of notes about this movie too, you guys.
All right, we'll have that discussion some other time off podcast. We don't want to wade too much into the subject of religion here.
The transition, but the segue between the two is they were really worried about the continuity of the Bible, and now let's get into the continuity of movies.
Hey,
really.
Do you want to host this podcast? Because you're good at that. You're good at the segues. So.
I'm sorry for that.
No, not a problem. No, that was an honest ask. Jameson, my first question, what on earth is an Ator, and why are we starting with the fourth one?
Okay, so just a brief history of this movie. This came to my attention, I want to say about 15 or so years ago, where I was just chilling out at home, and I get a call from my buddy Blake, and he says, Jameson, what are you doing right now? And I said, nothing. I said, turn on the Sci-Fi Channel. And I came in just in time to see one of the lamest and goofiest fucking sword fights I had ever seen in a movie. And that kind of set us on this path of, we gotta watch this. And then through some research, we found out there's 4 movies in this series. And may I just say, I think it's about damn time that we finally got around to watching some sword and sorcery barbarian B-movie on this podcast. Because as far as like B movies go, this is kind of like the gold standard. You can always count on these Conan the Barbarian ripoffs to be a fucking riot.
Oh man, yeah. Making the careers of actors like Liam Neeson for decades.
Well, also, more tellingly, Jameson, this is a sword and sorcery movie, but it also falls into your other favorite category on this podcast, which is Italian movies, which are really trying to sell themselves as American features. The Italians have not let us down yet.
Less Italian movie, more so Italian knockoffs of popular movies. So we went on this amazing kick where we saw 3 Mad Max ripoffs from Italy, and now we're going to start on these. I assume we're going to start on these barbarian ripoff films. I suppose.
That's delightful. This is great.
Really
I didn't know this was a genre. I knew that there were various versions of Star Wars and Spider-Man out there that are not what they claim to be.
Yeah, the cursory look into these Italian schlockbusters, to coin a term that's not mine, there are surprisingly a lot more over a lot of different genres. What I've discovered is within like the Italian B-movie things, there are a ton of Jaws ripoffs. The Italians love to do big shark movies. So, I mean, there's so many god-awful straight-to-DVD shark movies already out there, but there are also a ton of 80s, 70s, period-specific big shark movies as well. Maybe if, somewhere down the line, we can have a little Shark Week on the show.
Oh, that'd be fun. What are their names? Like, just off the top of your head, do you know any?
Devilfish.
I know there's one from the same director as 1990 Bronx Warriors, Jameson. I think it's literally just called Big Shark.
I think it's Devilfish, but yeah. Anyways, I want to get into sort of the history of this particular film and this franchise here. So this is the 4th film in the Ator film series and is meant to serve as a reboot of the franchise. This is also the final film in the Ator franchise.
So exactly like what they did with Fast and Furious.
Yeah, I guess. I haven't seen any of those movies. But having seen both Ator 1 and Ator 4, I can tell you right now that they are entirely different stories. And they share no narrative commonalities with each other, except for, like, the name of the title character and, like, tropes of the genre.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a reboot does at all, does it?
Well, let me get into how this came about. So, the series was largely the brainchild of director Joe D'Amato as a means to cash in on the success of Conan the Barbarian and its sequels. In fact, the 2 Ator films went into production after each of the Conan films were released in Italy. Of these 2 movies, Ator, the Fighting Eagle, is considered the more earnest of the Conan ripoffs, with its sequel, Ator the Blade Master, generally seen as the more rushed of the 2. That film features reused footage from the first movie, unintentional comedic moments, and anachronisms such as hang gliders and a nuclear explosion to cap it off.
Whoa.
Nice. So it's really the future.
It didn't know what the hell it wanted to be. So, when it was announced that there were no plans for a 3rd Conan film, Joe D'Amato bowed out and stated that he would make no further Ator movies. But Ator proved to be somewhat moderately successful, so a third Ator film was greenlit without D'Amato. That was Ator Iron Warrior. This was directed by a man named Alfonso Brescia, and it features the same loose plot of Ator 2, but largely abandons the continuity of the first film, as well as the comedic moments and anachronisms of 2. Additionally, the film is considered more of an art house picture, utilizing a variety of cinematic techniques and camera tricks to act as symbols or give deeper meaning to the film. The film also features homages to popular films of the time, such as Raiders of the Lost Ark, Excalibur, and Superman 2, and utilizes a soundtrack taken from another film of Joe D'Amato. I know that's a lot.
You've made these all sound fascinating for a variety of reasons. I think we may have to check out all of the Ator films at some point in time, but since we're starting with 4, my pitch is that we continue to go out of order. So we should do 2 next?
Kaz, hear me out on this. So we have this sort of unofficial rule where, like, we don't do any of the movies that have been covered by, like, the top dogs of, like, B-movie review podcasts. So, like,
sure.
Yeah, so if it's been done by, like, the Red Letter Media guys or How Did This Get Made, we tend not to touch it. Unfortunately, the first Ator film was covered by Mystery Science Theater.
All right, well, I mean, that makes sense. They've been at this game far longer than we have.
Yeah.
But let me just say, Jameson, you have sold that so well, I will at least put a passing glance on some of these Ator films in my own life.
Well, let me just set up 4 here for you. So, D'Amato was reportedly unhappy with Brescia's approach to his character and retook creative control of the franchise to make this straight-to-video sequel. As an apparent slight to Brescia, D'Amato did not title this film Ator 4 in his script, in promotional print, or in discussions with the foreign distributors, but rather, he called it Ator 3. It was finally released as Ator Quest for the Mighty Sword for the American release, though D'Amato personally refers to this film as Ator, the Lord of Achille in interviews, for whatever fucking reason. After its stateside release and commercial failures, regional VHS distributors were looking to build on the success of the Troll series of films. When it was noticed that the goblin costumes worn in this film were the exact same as those used in the infamous Troll 2 movie, this film was repackaged and resold as Troll 3.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. And it has nothing to do with the Troll series other than they reused the same costumes.
Well, but the Troll series is, obviously, as a fan of bad movies, I'm, of course, aware of the Troll series. I haven't seen the Troll movies, much like I haven't seen the Ator movies, but the one thing that I do know is that Troll 2 has nothing to do with Troll 1. It's a completely unrelated movie that, rather tellingly, does not have any trolls in it. It's all goblins. Mm-hmm. So now we have, again, it's like a game of telephone, where now we're on, supposedly, the 3rd Troll movie, which, I don't know, we haven't seen this now. Is there a troll in Ator 4? Quest for the Mighty Sword.
I mean, there's 2 goblins.
That is not a troll.
2 goblins does not make a troll.
So maybe the movie, the Troll series, the Troll franchise, isn't referring to there being a troll in the movie, but rather that they're trolling the audience.
I saw where you were going with that before the joke.
For the lols.
Yeah.
Epic win.
The Troll series is just a feeling.
It's just a huge prank on us, the audience.
Yeah, there's a little troll in all of us.
All right. Okay, so I've already kind of gone over the director, Joe D'Amato, but just kind of briefly, he's an Italian cult B-movie director with nearly 200 directing credits, usually under a pseudonym. He makes these movies. He has directed several genre films ranging from westerns, comedies, swashbucklers, post-apocalypse movies, war movies, horror, but he is best known as an erotic film director. His films include titles such as A Lustful Mind, Erotic Nights of the Living Dead, Porno Holocaust, Sexy Night Report, Sexy Erotic Love, Hard Sensation, Hercules, A Sex Adventure, and one more, but this is kind of like unrelated to the fucking porn titles, but what do you think of that collection so far?
What? Oh man, what was like the 3rd one you said? Like, there was like
Sexy Night Report?
Sexy
Porno
Holocaust?
Holocaust.
Is that
there was
a
another
spoof of Cannibal Holocaust?
Porno Holocaust I've definitely heard of. There was one you said, Jameson, that was like so redundant. It was like Sexy Love Sex.
Sexy Erotic Love.
Sexy Erotic Love! That's like the same thing 3 times.
Yeah, that's just phoning in the fucking title right there.
I'm not coming to watch gross erotic love, that's for sure.
You want the top shelf stuff. But one other film that I want to mention of his, Kaz, remember a few months ago when we were discussing all the post-apocalypse movies, we were talking about George Eastman, and we found out he was a bit of a weirdo creep who starred in a movie where he, like, killed a pregnant woman and ate her fetus? Guess who directed that movie? Yeah, and then he
directed another movie where he had sex with a dog. Yeah, no, I'm aware of the dude. Yes, I'm aware of the man and his work.
Yeah, well, he directed that movie. Joe D'Amato directed that one where he eats a fetus.
Oh, well, so they're good for, they're contemporaries then. They work in the same circles. Look, I've just resolved to the fact that Italian filmmakers are on a completely different level from everyone else. You know, it's their own industry, it's their own...
They're beyond our understanding, really. I mean,
the
Italian people have given us great art in the past. Yeah. Be it the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, or Michelangelo's David, or
just the very method of making fresh pasta. Yes, they are true artistes, every sense of the word.
I just think it's important for us to sing the Italians' praise because we've been shitting all over their movies.
That's fair. I'm part Italian.
We shit with love, though.
I think that was another one of his movie titles.
We shit with love? Yeah, no, probably.
Okay, so let's meet the cast here. Playing the title role of Ator or Ator, I don't remember how it's properly pronounced.
Probably say it in the movie.
Yeah. It's Eric Allen Cramer. This is the first feature film role for this journeyman actor. He's probably best known for True Romance, Robin Hood Men in Tights, The Hughleys, which was a show he was a regular on. But awesomely, he is also known as the first live-action portrayal of Thor, as in like Marvel's Thor, in the hilariously bad TV movie, The Incredible Hulk Returns. Have you seen that, Kaz?
I've seen stills. I've seen stills of what Thor looks like in that. It's quite funny, yes.
Yeah.
Those were the two live-action Incredible Hulk TV movies that they made, I think, at the tail end of the show. They made that one with Thor, and then they made The Trial of the Incredible Hulk that has Daredevil in it. Daredevil's costume hilariously doesn't look any better than Thor's. This guy, Eric Allen Cramer, he's definitely an actor I've seen a bunch because I have absolutely watched Robin Hood Men in Tights well over 30 times when I was a kid. He was unsurprisingly Little John.
For a guy who's like playing a barbarian and who has played Thor, he's a big dude. He's a big fucking dude. This film also features Laura Gemser. Coincidentally, she was also the costume designer for this film. She is best known for appearing as Emmanuelle in the 5 blaxploitation spin-off movies of the Emmanuelle series, which apparently are a series of French softcore erotic and sexploitation films.
Yes, the Emmanuelle series are quite known in the softcore porn world as one of the high art film series. I haven't seen any of them, but I am familiar with... No, I watch way worse porn shit than that. Anyway, did you say blaxploitation?
Yes.
So this is a black actress, or she's the white Emmanuelle in the blaxploitation versions of Emmanuelle?
I didn't, don't quote me on this, but from the images I've seen, I believe she's mixed race. But she plays Emmanuelle, but the name of her movie series is Black Emmanuelle. But they are but they're not meant to be fucking knockoffs. They are properly sanctioned spin-offs of Emmanuelle for blaxploitation audiences.
I guess we should be thankful they went with the title Black Emmanuelle and not something more. That hasn't held up well over time.
Such as, Kaz?
Blamanuelle!
The real Torchwood of the Emmanuelle series.
Absolutely. And lastly is an actress who... I don't want to delve too much into it because, she kind of has, sort of a tragic end. But I want to bring this up because I want to talk about her fucking husband. Marissa Mell, a woman who is best known as a femme fatale in numerous European cult art house films. After failed attempts at careers in Hollywood and Broadway, she moved to Italy, where she was a fixture of the Italian tabloids, notably due to her high-profile romance with Pier Luigi Torri, an aristocratic nightclub owner and playboy who later became one of the world's most wanted fugitives.
Holy shit. Wow.
Yeah, doesn't that sound like a fucking movie? In 1971, he got into a series of legal difficulties over cocaine being supplied to his nightclub clients, and he fled the country on his yacht. After being arrested in London over a $300 million gold mine and bank scam, Torrey got out of his cell, made a daring and acrobatic rooftop escape. This is all on fucking Wikipedia, I'm not embellishing. And he evaded a countrywide manhunt by police until he was eventually recaptured in America after 18 months at large.
This does sound like a movie. They should absolutely make this into a film. That sounds fascinating.
Oh, it should be a B movie, right? Definitely a B movie.
Did you say there was a tragic end to this woman, though?
I mean, I think she had some substance abuse issues when she went back to her home country of Austria to retire. She eventually just died in obscurity to throat cancer.
Oh, okay, so regular, depressing, tragic ending. Now, when you said tragic ending compared with her criminal mastermind husband, I thought there might be something lurid hiding in those details, but no, that's just flat out sad.
Yeah.
But I mean, dying in obscurity is something billions of people get to experience.
I mean, that's the dream, isn't it? Right?
think...
I'm building my career in the hopes that I will die penniless and obscured.
Not going out in a blaze of glory like Thelma and Louise or Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. That's kind of what I was sort of hoping would be the end of that story as I was reading it.
Oh, yeah, but I don't think it's tragic experiencing death the way most people do, dying in obscurity.
Well, speaking of dying of obscurity, let's take a break and we'll, I don't know.
Great segue, Kaz.
I know, I'm getting really good at them. Let's take a break and we will watch Ator 4 or Troll 3 or whatever this movie.
Whatever floats your boat.
Jameson, what are we going to title this episode?
It's really just a roll of the dice. I'm going with Ator Quest for the Mighty Sword because that's how I know of this movie.
Oh, man.
All right, well, we will go put some eyes on Ator for Quest for the Mighty Sword, and when we come back, we'll tell you all about what happened in this very bizarre sounding movie. I can't wait. I love it when Jameson surprises me like this. So we'll take a little break, and when we come back, we'll tell you all about it. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. The global pandemic has been an incredibly trying time for everyone. And as in most times of great difficulty, tensions inevitably boil over and sadly do grow into outright hostilities. But as much as anti-maskers or the people who openly defy bubble protocols frustrate me, nothing disappoints or angers me more than hearing about the rise of what can only be described as anti-Asian sentiment. Since the novel coronavirus became our shared reality, people of Asian heritage have seen the largest increase of hate incidents directed at them. Incidents ranging from assaults, open use of racial slurs, and vandalism such as racist graffiti targeting businesses. There has been plenty of anti-Asian attitudes simmering in my hometown of Vancouver even before the pandemic began. All of this came to a head with the tragic massacre at a health spa in Atlanta on March 16th, which, as of this writing, was not deemed to have a racist motive, but many Asian Americans feel it may as well have. Discriminating an entire ethnicity is wrong and ridiculous in any situation, especially in retaliation to something that affects us all. So for today's charity spot, I want to call to attention the organization Stop APPI Hate, as in Stop Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders Hate, and Fight Covidracism. These reporting centers track and analyze incidents of hate against Asian Americans, Asian Canadians, and Pacific Islanders in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. They work with the support of government agencies and community-based organizations to offer practical solutions and policy recommendations for long-term change. To report incidents to Stop APPI Hate or Fight COVID Racism, please visit their websites at stopappihate.org/report-incident or covidracism.ca/report. You may also find the links to their donation pages on their respective sites. Again, those links are stopappihate.org and covidracism.ca. Well, we're back from our mighty quest.
Our quest to understand what's going on.
That is a quest we are doomed to fail. We will seek enlightenment and we will find very little.
Maybe the answers we're looking for are actually simple. We're looking for complex things like plot. Maybe sometimes just Ator's winging it as much as we are.
As much as the filmmakers were winging huge chunks of the production of this movie.
Yeah.
Oh, I should specify Ator Jr. as opposed to Ator, his father, which were constantly referenced without specifying which one they were talking about.
Yeah. Ator, son of Ator. Both played by the same actor.
Yes, before we get into things, this was a joke that I couldn't believe I didn't think of in the first half of the recording. But this gentleman, Eric Cramer, he's one of the few actors who can say that he has played Ator and a Thor.
Huh.
Oh.
Kind of thought that would get a bigger reaction. All right, moving on.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So he's played Ator, and a Thor. Gotcha.
Yeah, just to make things slightly more.
Guys, this movie was dumb enough already. Can we? We don't have to go on this
That's the
tangent.
type of humor we bring on every episode.
It was great. This was a good, bad movie, in my mind.
I really love this movie. As boring as it fucking can be, and as fucking confusing as it can be at times. And I love how an entire hour goes by before they decide, shit, do we want to have a plot?
I felt like they had several.
Yeah.
The final plot, I think, was that he needs to go disrupt the gods in some way, right? Like, that's been kind of his prophecy, that his father, Ator, kind of is like, hey, kid, remember this 1-year-old son. Remember this, because I'm going to tell you. And we had that big pause scene, right, where he monologued to his 1-year-old child about how important it was for his 1-year-old child to remember this.
Listen, in case I'm killed in the next 2 minutes, it's important that you remember this vital information about this sword.
Yeah, which is destined to defy the gods, I think? I don't know.
I have absolutely no idea what happened in that. I don't know if I can recommend this. I'm still processing what I just watched. Like,
Okay.
I'm not done that yet. This was insane. This was like if you were playing an Elder Scrolls video game, but you were doing the main quest out of order.
Yeah.
It seems like the first trial that Ator goes through should be happening near the end of the game, and then a few scenes later, he's fighting a robot and a dragon, and it's like, this feels like this should have happened already by now.
Those robots, by the way, were very successful given their limited AI. They were, for all those skulls that were there, they really did not bring much to the table.
Goddamn, that conjoined two-headed robot monster was, God, like the most powerful threat this planet has ever faced until you just crouch behind a small catacomb and he
Walk
can't
up behind it.
get through. But otherwise, it's fucking unstoppable and unbeatable.
I didn't even know it was a robot until he cut it in half, but the first clue should have been he climbed into that little hole in the wall there, and the robot just continues to walk into the wall as if he's, again, a video game AI character that wasn't programmed terribly well. And then it turned out he was in fact an AI character because he's full of sparks and machinery.
Yeah.
It's almost like there were 3 movies in one, but they were tied together, right? Because first you got Ator Sr., who's been given a sword by the gods to administer justice by slaying any victim, anyone convicted by the courts. So he's been given this sword, and then he hears that the god who gave him the sword wants it back, and he's like, no, I would rather die, and does.
Wish granted.
Is that what happened? I'm immediately lost here. My first question, this Ator Sr., who I guess is the king, or a king. I know you've said, Jameson, that this is sort of a soft reboot of the Ator series. Are we to believe that this is the Ator from the first movies?
That would make sense. However, this has absolutely nothing to do with, if the Wikipedia states that this was intended to be a complete reboot of the entire series. The plot of Ator 1 is that he was an orphan raised by this village chieftain or whatever, and then he kind of goes on an epic quest of not defying the gods or anything. It never depicts like he has a family or anything else. As far as, is it the same Ator as the previous series? I mean, one of the movies ends with a fucking nuclear bomb going off, so I don't think he would survive that anyways.
Anything could have happened.
Yeah.
There are multiple parallel universes with multiple Ators.
Yeah.
Going on. It's into the Atorverse.
It would seem like if this was, like, Ator's not based on anything. Like, Conan the Barbarian's based on Conan the Barbarian comics. Ator is just like a straight up film series, and it seems like for this being a reboot, they want to encapsulate the first 3 stories of the Ator saga in the first hour of the movie. And then, okay, here's the direction that we're going to take the rest of the series in, starting with like the last half hour of the movie.
Okay, we're at the part where he's got the swords, right? He's got the sword, which he uses to administer justice to men. And he does it really well, which we know because some random woman we saw running through the credits tells everyone that he's really good at administering justice with his sword.
So the guy that he's fighting, was he like convicted of rape? And
yeah, both of those guys theoretically.
Yeah. So they are sentenced to fight the king to the death.
I think
seems
it's
like
their
an odd way
right
to administer justice.
It's their right to challenge the king to a battle to the death.
And what happens then? If they kill the king, do they become the king? Luckily, we don't have to focus too much on this story, because as soon as, surprise, the king dies at the hands of that god, he gets speared from like a fucking football field away.
Oh yeah, so that was a theory. I think that was supposed to be the god that gave him the sword to begin with.
Sure. Yeah.
Who maybe turned into the goblin?
Who turned into the goblin for half a second, which is, I think you were saying in the intro, Jameson, they had one mask from Troll 2, and that's very clearly because they used one mask on at least 3 different characters. I don't know, there's 2 different trolls. I think maybe there might be slight cosmetic differences between the 2 troll characters, but for all ostensible purposes, it is the same mask on both of the characters. So it is very hard to tell those characters apart.
Oh,
and
man.
Then,
I mean,
Hargan, though.
I mean, it's not. I mean, also, it's not.
Yeah,
but
I mean, they
we'll get
certainly
to
have
that.
different roles and functions in the movie, but there is definitely an audible difference between the 2 that we'll get into.
Let's save Hargan for near the end, because
Oh, God,
I gotta say, highlight of the movie for me.
MVP. Easily the MVP, yeah.
So, but there's so much to unpack with the first fucking goblin. So after King Ator is slain in battle, I guess to protect her son, the queen takes the destroyed sword and finds Grendel, who apparently a master smith. And he's a goblin. And she says, I want you to reforge this sword from the gods. Apparently you're the only one who can do that to. But also, I guess I'm a wanted woman. Or, a queen cannot exist without a king or some shit. So I'm gonna die, and I need you to raise my kid for me. And Grendel very explicitly says, fuck that, I'm not doing that. But she goes forward with this plan anyways.
Oh, he at least gave her a wink first. He's like, hey.
So basically, if I'm understanding this correctly, it was very hard to parse out, but if I'm understanding this part of the story correctly, she has to pay the troll's toll in order to save her boy's soul.
Exactly.
Yes, the troll's toll, which is his toll.
Yeah. And he gives her like this potion that he says will give her like a painless death, but twist! It's actually a potion that it gives her eternal youth.
Turns her horny. It's a horny actually,
it's a love potion, but it gives her eternal youth, and then he just sends her off on her merry way to wander the lands as ostensibly a hooker.
No, it's not. No, man, she got cursed because of all those shenanigans.
I wrote it down. So Ator Jr., who we'll get to in a second, has this unspecified sorceress lady who he just hangs out with. And as I guess they were sort of recounting this part in flashback, I wrote it down because I couldn't believe this was an actual line of dialogue. The sorceress says he fed her an erotic potion.
Grendel gave her an erotic potion instead of poison.
Nice.
You gotta watch out for that. It should just be a blanket statement. Never drink anything a troll or goblin gives to you.
Especially when he's just laughing constant creepy laughing and be like, hey, you wanna consummate with me?
I will not raise your child because we haven't done it yet.
And is that really the sort of guy you want to be dying around otherwise?
Is there no one else who can reforge this sword?
Guess not. But it's really important though, because older Ator told younger Ator, it is important that this sword stays with an Ator.
Yeah.
So I guess Ator Jr. is raised by Grinder the Goblin or whatever. I mean, we don't necessarily...
That's a good name.
I mean, I've met a few goblins on Grinder, don't get me wrong. But, I'm assuming he was raised to peak adulthood, even though it seems like it would be in the goblin's best interest to raise him poorly, raise him as a weakling, maybe malnourish him. But no, he's grown up into the literal spitting image of his father, huge muscly barbarian. So really, that's Grindel's fault, really, more than anything.
Yeah, Grindel's like, I'm gonna teach you smithing, I'm gonna teach you how to just be stacked. Swordplay, you got it. Mm-hmm. Just teaching him everything he needs.
He just survives as, I guess, his indentured servant. His only companion and confidant is that old sage woman of some magic variety who we never find out the name of. I quickly looked in the Wikipedia articles of the other Ator movies. Well, sorry, like, yes, she does have a name. And I looked it up, and she's not in any of the other Ator movies.
She does have a name, but we never did meet her before she's fully explaining to Ator.
Yeah, she's just there to, like, give exposition, and, like, you must do this, you must, retrieve this sword, you must kill Grendel, which is his name. I'm gonna call him Troll Dad, though. Because he's an awesome fucking troll dad.
So Ator's mother was cursed to just go around the world boning everyone. Like that, I think that's what they said her curse was.
Yeah.
It also, as we find out later on in the movie, a little bit of a spoiler, it seems that part of this curse is that she has some sort of eternal youth, because it's also years later, and when we catch up with her, she's still whoring about, but she's younger and she's beautiful. I couldn't tell if this was the same actress who played the younger mother, because as normal, we watched this movie on YouTube, and the quality is probably the worst out of any movie we've ever watched on this podcast before. It was like an impressionistic painting. The quality was so bad.
Yeah.
And also the sound quality was terrible. Very often the music was louder than the dialogue, so it led to a lot of expository scenes going on where someone was like, "Yeah, you must do the thing, the play, right? It's imperative, Ator."
Yeah.
It was a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
So I couldn't tell.
There was like moments where like you would see characters running across a field, several shots of people running across fields to absolute dead silence, and then it would cut jarringly to a loud ass musical sting.
That Ator theme is it's pretty awesome.
It's fucking
not gonna lie,
Saturday
it's
morning
pretty great.
cartoon levels of awesome.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Ator has a sheath on his back, which at one point you literally see him just tap the sword on his back and hold it there while he's running, because it would be hard to sheath.
Again, like a video game for fast travel.
But he does run constantly with his sword out. Like, just like holding it around. That's not very cool. So where are we?
Speaking of swords, can we talk about Grendel's multiple fake sword switcheroos?
Oh, what a clever guy. What a clever goblin that Grendel
guy.
So I guess around like Thor's 18th birthday, whatever, he says, "I've fulfilled my promise. Here's the sword I promised to forge for you." And Ator's first instinct is to attack and try to slice the troll dad in half. But, epic troll, it's a fake sword and it shatters on impact. And he's like, "I knew long ago that man could never be trusted, even though I clearly can't be trusted."
Yeah, he's like, yeah, it's a dummy sword, you dummy. But Ator was just told by a stranger not to trust this being that has raised him his whole life and taught him smithing, swordplay, and how to work out. And he immediately is like willing to slice this guy in half.
Well, because the unspecified sorceress lady just filled in the details about how he essentially date raped his mom and cursed her and sent her off. So he wants revenge. My favorite part about all of this is he tricks him with the fake sword. He's all like, "Ha, you dummy. All right, hit the bricks. Go to bed, Ator." And then as Ator is like lying on the floor, Grendel moves a rock and pulls a sword out from behind the rock. And I'm sitting here and I'm going like, did this motherfucker have the actual sword behind the rock the entire time?
Yeah.
No, that's a fake sword too. He double fake swords him. And fake sword me once, shame on me. But
and of course Ator like picks it up again and is like, "All right, this time I'm playing for keeps." Swings again, breaks on impact.
the same thing
Troll
happened.
Dad like just splashes, like throws water in his eyes, such a gate on him, and then just fucks off and goes for a walk. It's
He
awesome...
blinds him. He throws the blinding powder in his eyes, which I gotta say was like really sneakily done.
This
that's
guy
pretty
is
good.
the original Troll Dad.
Oh, he's so good. And then Ator just randomly, accidentally stumbles into a potion which unblinds him.
Is that what happened? From the way I was watching it, it just seemed like the blindness wore off after a few seconds.
He stumbled
as
into
blindness.
some sort of pool or potion. There's like some kind of liquid sound, and he had some great acting moment where he realized he wasn't blind anymore.
And then, like, by sheer luck, he finds the remains of the original true sword, and then decides, okay, well, I'm just gonna forge this thing myself. How this guy spent, I guess, 18 or so, however fucking many years, living inside this very small cavern, and he never found the sword. Anyways, he pieces the sword together, and then it's like third time's a charm. He kills Troll Dad, and then he's off on his fucking quest.
I don't think before then he knew to look for the sword. I don't think he knew what his destiny was, but I'm just sort of marveling at the fact that not only has Grendel, kept the remnants of the shattered mythical sword just kind of in a corner or whatever, he's also constructed several dummy swords just to fuck with Ator, should that opportunity ever arise.
Well, you see Grendel when he's walking around on his walks, right? When he says he's gonna fuck off, he is a lonely goblin. Like, just kind of like, da-na-na-na-na. He's just kind of like head down, walking by a pond, looking sad. He's got nothing else to do.
These scenes are punctuated. There are scenes of Ator in the cave, forging the sword, my destiny, and then it'll just cut to Grendel on the beach, no music, just kind of walking, and his head's kind of bowed a little bit, probably due to the fact that the poor actor inside that mask couldn't see a fucking thing.
Oh, yeah. It really portrayed a sad life for that goblin, Grendel.
Maybe I was too hard on the kid. I should go apologize. It's the only thing I got in my life. I did him dirty and...
So, after this, what happens after he finally manages to cut his goblin dad in half?
Then is that when he sees a sorceress friend of his, takes on the guise of this woman, Deianira, who I suppose was a goddess who, when he was a kid, tried to intervene on the battle between the god and his dad and said, no, other god, don't kill him. And she was punished for that and trapped in a cavern. And so Ator fell in love with her on first sight and said, well, now I gotta go on a fucking quest to save her, I guess.
You said it right there, Jameson. Like, this entire epic quest that Ator goes on every plot point of this movie can be punctuated by the words, I guess. Like Ator was raised by a goblin and he has this mythical sword that only he can wield, I guess. And then he falls in love with this goddess who tried to stop his father's death and is imprisoned in a cave, I guess. And then he goes to a bar and he meets a prostitute who turns out to be his mom. I guess, like, it's just that all the way through, and it never stops. You never stop throwing your hands up in the air out of just sheer defeatism.
Yeah.
And being all like, I guess this is what we're doing now.
So how did he rescue his love, which immediately everyone, including the strange sorcerer, acknowledges is his love?
Well, first he has to fight the two-headed robot.
That's when he fought the two-headed robot.
Yeah.
The two-headed robot mini-boss, which is immediately followed by the melty cheese Godzilla mini-boss.
I felt bad for
this
that
thing was
Godzilla.
gross. I don't know what this thing was made out of, but I did not like looking at it.
That was the costume melting 100%.
They did. Well, because I think you're onto something, Brad, because they do. They have this guy in like this lizard Godzilla costume, and it is spewing actual flames from the mouth, but I think whatever process it had to get the flames out of the mouth was literally melting the costume, because it looked like that thing wasn't held together very well.
I love that costume because, like, we all know, like, the charm of the original Godzilla movies. You know, it's a guy in an obviously rubber suit, but the sets of the city around him give the impression that we know it's just a guy in a suit, but it's meant to look like a giant. This literally is just a dude in a rubber Godzilla suit, and it's so lame when you just see him go up against another dude.
I'm not convinced that Godzilla guy meant him any harm, because he took no aggressive actions. It was just basically coming home, as far as I could
Coming home
tell.
to his two-headed robot lover, and then, you just walk into the cave. It's like, no, my love, what have you done?
Or it could have been like, oh, thank you, that two-headed robot had imprisoned me here long ago. Thank you for saving me.
Yeah, I am the lizard princess, and you have won my love. That's why he was being approached.
Why can I only speak with fire?
Oh, good stuff.
Can I also point out, I know this movie has like 8 different titles, but can I also point out the name of this movie is Quest for the Mighty Sword? He gets the mighty sword at like 15 minutes in. It's not much of a quest.
Yeah, I think
And
that's
then he just
kind of-
has the sword.
Yeah, I think that's why the director in interviews keeps saying, oh, the title of this movie is Ator, King of the Achille people or whatever. Like, in hindsight, he's trying to fucking correct the record on this.
Yes, the Achille people, that all-important plot point that this movie... Yeah, so he goes to a cave to rescue his girlfriend who he saw once when he was 5 and has never spoken to, we assume. But they fall in love immediately. He gives her a Sleeping Beauty kiss. He wakes up. And then we cut to stock footage of volcanoes erupting.
Oh yeah, it breaks down. The whole thing comes crashing down, right?
But, like, them escaping was probably a very fun set, or a fun day on set. Because there's, like, off camera, you can see, like, some dude with a fire extinguisher just blasting them as they're running through hallways. There's parts where, like, a skull bursts out of a wall and goes,
The skull didn't make sound. I think that was her screaming. Even though she's a god who is now mortal? That's when this happened?
Who is this woman?
Well,
I guess she was
a god.
some sort of goddess who tried to interfere and tried to stop Ator Sr. from being executed, but when she failed, she was imprisoned in fire by a group of women who I don't know who they were.
Other
and
gods.
I guess imprisoned by fire equals asleep in a cave, I guess, because that's where Ator finds her. And yeah, when he kisses her, he says, now you're mortal like me. And I'm like, cool, I guess that's what I wanted to happen? I don't know. This is my 3rd line so far, so I don't know. I don't know what my motivation is.
Well, giving her more lines would not have been the answer to
No.
I'm very hesitant to always call out actors who I think are bad actors
fair.
because I'm not a fantastic actor myself. Who am I to say what constitutes good acting, bad acting? This woman is one of the worst fucking actresses.
You can say it in this case.
Back to find the path back to the middle world.
I think that's fair. Taking a glance at her IMDb, this is the only movie she did, which is not surprising.
Maybe she's just not an actor. I feel like a lot of the people in this movie were done dirty by definitely being given one take to get a scene. And if they didn't get the scene, that's fine. Moving on.
Yeah.
What I will say, comparing this to the other Italian B movies that we've done, Jameson, it does seem like most of the people in this cast aren't Italian. They seem to be English-speaking, or at the very least have English-speaking names. It's not the case of
to being dubbed over.
Casting someone who doesn't speak a lick of English in your main role. Can't really blame that on them either.
I just remembered because of that. The herald at the beginning of the movie explaining to Ator what's going on, Ator Sr., did he have a Texan accent? I don't hear many Texan accents in high fantasy movies.
I think he had a very stereotypical gay lisp.
There was a twang there. It was South U.S. Something was going on there.
The condemned have appealed to the justice of the gods. Prince Ator has accepted their plea. He will spare their lives if they can overcome the divine power of the sword of the sacred Graal in combat.
I have a sneaking suspicion a lot of the actors, no matter what their nationality, their speaking voices aren't coming from the actors who portrayed them in the movie. I think there was a lot of ADR going on in this movie, and I think most of the voiceover artists were production heads, maybe just like the people who happened to be around on the day, because there wasn't a ton of emoting going on. They didn't really there was a lot of stumbling over lines.
I had a theory that I mentioned to you guys in the chat that there is no ADR going on whatsoever. That it is really just an actor or maybe even the director standing just off stage or yelling into the boom mic during the take. And that's why even the ADR has tons of stumbles and whatnot, because it's not ADR. It's someone just yelling off camera.
If it is ADR, they clearly only had one day scheduled for ADR. Not even a day. They clearly had 2 hours to finish the ADR because there were no second takes.
It's like they didn't have fucking permits to film at their location. So like, all right, we got it in camera. Like, let's wrap shit up here and get out of here before fucking security comes by.
Okay, so 18-year-old Ator has just found the love of his life and turned her mortal, and
I guess she's cool with it.
Yeah, she's like, great.
We assume.
Yeah.
That's fine. Is she kidnapped right away, or does something else happen?
No, they go to the Star Wars cantina.
That's when they go to the cantina.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And they see one guy gambling in some weird dice roll game. He's obviously a cheat, but the man who is threatening to kill him is also in possession of Ator's mom. So he kills the bad person in this situation. The gambler is now like sort of indebted to Ator, so he just follows him around randomly.
Yeah, we don't know that
we don't
yet.
find that out until like 10 minutes later.
Yeah, that he's been following. We have no idea that that's happened.
Then he breaks his mother's curse. Because
he doesn't initially realize that it's his mother, though. Right?
He just turns down sleeping with her when she tries to sleep with him, and that breaks the curse. Someone who doesn't view her as...
Presumably this entire time she's been roaming the land as a whore, selling her body. Not a single person saw the human being there, which is a sad commentary on mythical relations. I don't know.
But Ator says, no, don't pay me with sex, please. And she says, the curse is broken. And then he goes, Mom?
Which is a good lesson for everyone out there. Always treat sex workers like they could be your mother in disguise.
Yeah.
Maybe that's your fucking kink.
But as soon as he realizes it is her mother and sets her free, she immediately dies. So did he do her a favor?
There seems to be a theme of Ator freeing women, but then after they're free, it seems like their situation gets significantly worse.
Significantly worse. Because Ator in this movie starts out, young Ator, I should say, is 17. Going on 18, right?
Looks like he's fucking going on 35, but yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that is a grown man there, yes.
So it's only been 17 years that she's been cursed from being mother age. So she's what, in her 40s? And then she just shrivels away to being this old lady?
Yeah. She's a gray-haired old woman by the time her curse is broken. That must have been a lot of miles on that face. She must have done a whole bunch of whoring in that time.
Oh my gosh, I feel bad. I feel bad for
Mother, you're withering before my eyes. I'm 46!
So he has a good old mom roast after that. And then...
Gotta do something with that body.
Wait, he sees someone. Who's at the bonfire? There's someone that shows up.
That's the gambler who they save. Well, no, they go
No, what the fuck happens? Oh my god, you're right.
Yeah, maybe he slew some people? Hard to say.
I think after the mom gets toasty, they start walking towards their destination, which is ... And then they get, ambushed by, a team of soldiers hiding in high grass or whatever, and they have a fight, and then the gambler shows up with his boomerang. The gambler whose name is...
Scold, I think.
Skjold!
Yeah.
These are all ridiculous names.
He saved them. He took out more bad guys than they did with his little boomerang. Yeah. He beat the combat abilities of a god and the guy wielding the sword of the gods. But he's a little gambler cheat, and he takes out several of these snorting warriors.
I don't quite follow his motivations, because once he saves them, he drops the line, "Now I'm no longer indebted to you. I feel bad about that." I'm paraphrasing here. But basically, he was following them because he wants to repay them for saving him in the tavern. But once he does that, I
don't actually think you are paraphrasing that much. I think that's more or less what the dialogue is.
There's one thing I regret.
What?
Well, that I don't owe you anything anymore.
You'd have never gotten out of that swamp alive.
No, that's not what I mean. It's just that, well, I don't have a reason to follow you anymore.
He was playing it cool. It's super cool. He's like, hey, I only did that because I'm indebted to you, but that's too bad. You want to maybe invite me? You want to invite me along?
Sure would be a shame if, I had to be indebted to you for some other reason,
But Ator takes a shine to him, so he's allowed to...
Hey, shine gets!
Yeah, so he's allowed to pal around for the rest of their fucking adventure.
And this is an hour into an hour-and-a-half movie that he finally has a sidekick.
Yeah.
For what, 10 minutes?
And it's even longer before our main antagonist is introduced.
Oh,
so,
that happens
pacing?
right now, right? Because
yeah.
He's on his way to the Kingdom of the East to somehow disrupt the plans of the gods.
I think it was just to get out of their reach by going to another realm where, those gods that are after him, they can't reach them in this other realm.
Yeah, but
also, that was a hell of a lazy day for whoever was map making. It's just it's the kingdom of, the east. That's where it is. It's over there. Yeah, it's not the west.
It's on the other side of the swamp.
Oh,
It's
man.
it's the Kingdom of the Left.
So
hand
this is
side.
where we meet Prince Gunther, as we find out who his name is, because we've never met these people before.
Yeah, we're introduced to, like, 3 principal antagonists in, like, the course of, like, a minute. And Gunther says, I will have Deianira as my bride, and you, sister, will have Ator as your husband. And it's like, who the fuck are these people?
Because this movie's plot is so ill-defined, and they kept kind of changing what Ator's main quest purpose was, my assumption was that he was going to fight whoever killed his dad at the beginning of the movie. The identity of whom is still a huge fucking question mark. I don't know I still don't know who that was.
Thorn.
Was it a troll? Because he had a troll head at the very end, so...
That was the god Thorn. Come on, Kaz, you gotta save something for Ator 5.
Right. Of course, the god Thorn. How could I have forgotten the all-important character who is totally brought up? No, but I guess our actual antagonist is Prince Gunther, this gaunt, pox-ridden ruler. He is more gross to look at than his goblin sidekick. This is a nasty-looking dude.
Oh, man, I gotta say, Hargan really grew on me.
It's just Hargan cast now. Welcome to Hargan Cast, where we talk about all things Hargan.
So we gotta mention, though, that Ator at this point is going east because they have now kidnapped his love.
Gunther's goons kidnap Deianira because he's in love with her too. No idea how they fucking met or whatever, or how he knew about her. He wants to make her his queen or something.
Can I also say, looking at IMDb, looking at the character names right now, her name is Deianira. That is not spelt the way you think it is. However you think that name is spelt, it is the opposite. There is a J in there.
Oh, so she's Spanish.
So Ator and his gambling buddy go to the kingdom of Gunther. Gunther has an evil sister who is also in love with Ator. These are all details because really it's all about Hargan.
Yeah.
Oh, man, yeah. Of course, they have their plan. They're like, hey, tell you what, you take Ator, I'll take Ator's love. Great, we're good, right?
Yeah.
But then Hargan he starts off kind of berating Hargan, which I was like, oh, it's kind of hard on his little sibling there. He's like, yes, if you haven't disturbed me for a good reason, you'll pay, Hargan. And immediately Hargan says something calming, and he's like, what would I ever do without you, Hargan? I need you, Hargan.
This threw me through a loop because, again, out of nowhere, we're sort of introduced to, this little person actor who is in this goblin/troll outfit or whatnot, and it looks exactly like the earlier troll who comes in. So my first thought is all like, oh, did he survive somehow and now he's allied himself with the antagonist? But then Hargan starts talking.
Yeah. So
and this is where the majority of the laughter came for me, because
the funny thing about his voice is that there's really nothing funny about the voice. It's just funny hearing it coming out of a goblin. It is smooth jazz radio.
It is a great honor for my master to receive Ator, Prince of the Achille, in his castle. Tales of your deeds have even reached our kingdom. Enter, Ator, and be seated at Prince Gunther's table, so that he may repay you.
Oh, no. I am telling you, I can tell that whoever is saying those lines is reading them off a goddamn script as he's saying them.
Gunther's unfortunate sister, the Princess Grimilda, has been kidnapped by an enemy. Our soldiers thought they found her when they saw Deianira. I can assure you they have already paid for their unforgivable mistake.
There is a quality there where it's not occurring to him as he's saying it.
It's just the contrast between the two troll characters, because the earlier one we meet, and he's literally he's doing a troll voice. He's doing like, Ator, take the sword, and I tricked you, Ator. Yeah. And then we get to the other troll, and it's just like, hello, I'm Hargan. I work for the Duke, the King, or whatnot. Can I get you some mead or some wine, perhaps? It's just, and it never gets higher or lower than that. It's just a pleasant conversational tone the entire time.
Very soothing.
And it's coming out of his body.
And he's also got the best plans too. Like, he came up with that whole switcheroo. Jameson, can we both try like a Hargan impression? Because Kaz just did his. I want to hear what ours sound like, because just to give people the sense of how specific this goblin is.
I'll go one further. Can we do the rest of the podcast using our Hargan impressions?
Using our Hargan voices, yeah.
I don't think people could listen to that for too long.
Of course, Prince Gunther. Soon, the goddess Deianira will be in your thrall, and Ator will be away from this land forever. There.
That's pretty
that's my Hargan off.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a surprise last-minute guest, Hargan, from the movie Ator 4, The Hobgoblin. Welcome. Well, it's like, that was amazing. That was literally like he was here in the studio with us.
Oh, pleasure to be here with you boys.
You need to woo her, because there is a chance that she is a god and will not respond to your advances.
I like yours a little bit more because that was very much like a cold read. Yeah. Was it just me or did Harkin sound a little bit like Judge Reinhold?
Oh, kind of. Less wry, for sure.
Absolutely.
Like, Hargan was a pretty serious guy.
Yeah, real
Hargan had a
shooter.
plan.
Yeah, if he wasn't evil, I'd like the cut of his jib.
And he kept talking about how awesome his boss was and how loyal he was to him and like a real great sidekick.
But that raises the question, was Hargan evil? Or was he just making the best of a bad situation? It really felt like Hargan was sort of filling the role of a Tyrion Lannister. You know? Like if we had gotten to know him a little bit more, you can tell that there's a lot more going on in the brain of that little troll man.
Yeah.
But he never got his due.
Like, Gunther is a sad, pathetic old man. And I think Harkin pities him for that. And so he just wants to do what he can to make his master's life easier.
He could definitely leave if he wanted to. There's
lots of opportunities for a young, successful troll butler out there. You know, who knows?
But he seems to genuinely care about his boss is what I mean, because he keeps saying things and like just phrasing them in really nice ways and giving helpful advice and planning his strategies for him.
Mm-hmm.
Like really
very reassuring. Yeah, everybody needs a friend like Harkin in their lives.
Oh man, Hargan.
So, Gunther's evil sister disguises herself with magic to look like the girlfriend who's, the goddess girlfriend whose name I can never remember.
Deianira.
Yes, Deianira. And, and the three of them just leave and they're kind of hanging out down by a brook and the disguised Deianira says like, why do we have to hang out with this thief, this rogue and everything like that? He's cooking meat on a spit. I just want to be alone with you, Ator. And Ator takes a moment and is all like, this seems unlike you. This doesn't seem like you. And then later on, the thief, the skewered character is all like, I knew something was up. She never would have referred to me like that way. Based on what context? You've known these people for an hour. Yeah. Ator has known this woman for like maybe 4 hours at this point. How do you know what her personality is at this point? She's had 5 lines at this stage.
And no one did anything.
She's the second billed actor.
I guess he just didn't want to really, be a cock blocker for Ator.
Ator was still capable of doing that to himself. He was like, can we just be alone, Ator? He's like, no, that'd be rude to scold, he'd feel left out. It's like, fucking dude.
There is a weird moment where they say that and then Scold, assessing the situation, is all like, I'll give those two some alone time. And he leaves. And then Ator gets up and he's like, Scold! Scold! And then like really ominous music comes in.
Yeah.
But nothing happened to Scold. Scold just kind of went over there for a bit.
Mm.
Scold? Scold? Scold?
And then he comes back like a minute later. It's like, hey guy, yeah, I knew it wasn't her. Yeah. You want to go?
Ator still slept with her, right? Like, that was the case. Because then the next day she kind of gets up and for some reason reveals that she's her, that she's not the actual princess.
There was no real reason for her to reveal her deception because the whole point was that she was deceiving him.
Yeah, she wanted to, and finally she's like, ha ha, you fell for it! And then casually walks away.
Well, the reveal is so strange because she says, like, well, will you always love me, Ator? And he's like, Deianira, the hounds from hell couldn't steal my heart away from you. And she's like, no, Ator, you don't love Deianira. You love me, the weird sister character that you've never met before. I stole your heart from her. And then she just fucks off.
Yeah, exactly. Like, aha, you'll never get her. Oh, wait, bye.
Yeah.
And then she
you know,
kind of
it's
fucks
one of
out of the
those-
movie. She doesn't really come back.
It's one
Maybe
of those
she's
stupid
pregnant.
mind games that women play, you know, to test your loyalty and shit.
Oh, that's setting up for the sequel. She's pregnant with another actor who will be played by the same Ator.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll find out who Thorn is in this one. So, Ator and Skjorn, or whatever their names are, I don't remember any names other than Ator. They go back to the castle. A couple of things are happening here. What I want to talk about is what I think is the most mind-blowing scene in this movie. So, they sort of run into this hallway, and they're greeted by two guards with swords, and then Hargan is kind of like in the background. He's like rubbing his hands together like, haha, you'll never get past these guys.
Aha, you'll never get past these guys.
Haha, you've never
Thank
seen
you,
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Thank you, Brad. And then the movie weirdly turns into a comedy for like 30 seconds. And yeah, exactly what you said, Jameson. It's literally the Raiders of the Lost Ark joke. These guys start swinging their swords around like crazy. Ator and the other guy kind of look at each other like, can you believe this? And then what happens next, gentlemen?
Ator got a gun. Ator's like got a little, basically Assassin's Creed sort of crossbow deal under his wrist that pops out like a little machine.
It would be one thing if it popped out, Brad. It appears out of nowhere on his arm.
Yeah, it appears. Because of editing, I'm sure it was meant to look like it popped out.
Of course it was because of editing. That's the only way, that's the only reason it ever showed up.
And then
the editor willed it so.
He just shoots them, and poor old Hargan, the real hero, looks back and forth with the costume's inability to turn
trying
its
to
neck.
see out of the eye holes.
Yeah, and then he kind of runs off being kind of sad or panicked. As much panicked as Hargan can be. Oh no, they're coming.
Oh dear, I gotta get
my
out
plan,
of here.
My plan has failed. I must warn Prince Gunther immediately.
Oh yeah, and that's when her skull dies.
Yeah, he gets, what is that? He gets harpooned to the chest or something. And he's like, oh, Ator, take my boomerang, even though you have a projectile weapon of your own.
That's better.
Yeah, even though you have the mighty sword of myth and legend, take this piece of wood that is bent.
To be fair, the initial sword was broken by a harpoon sort of thing as well. So,
for being the mighty sword, it's kind of weak. My favorite thing about that boomerang weapon is there's a sequence where they're storming into Gunther's castle and Skull takes out two guards by chucking the boomerang. How the movie depicts that is essentially the camera guy, POV, holding the boomerang upright and then just like sneaking up on guys and whacking them in the head.
Just kind of brushing against the back of their necks and then they throw themselves forward.
But Skull gets a lovely death scene and Ator is fine with it. Looks kind of like a little disappointed. Goes away.
Well, again, to be fair, he only knew the guy for like 2 hours tops.
Yeah.
So you can't really get terribly invested. So this is where we learn that Gunther has some sort of process where he dips people into some sort of liquid and they come out as statues.
We saw this earlier but didn't know what it was. We saw someone being suspended over this pool, and we also saw Gunther painting a small statue of a child, which did look very creepy. But now we know he is dipping humans in a little vac, aka waxworks.
He's dipping them into lucite, like a comic book guy. Yeah, and now he's dangling Diamira over this because she won't be with him because he's a nasty old man, and of course he's very slowly lowering her into this. I love this because the implication of how this works compared to the position that the multiple statues that are around Gunther at all times are wildly inconsistent. Like, for example, he has like a stone cat that he's always stroking, and you can assume like he got tired of this cat and he dipped the cat into the thing. But the cat is in like a relaxed cat position. But like, if this is how this works, all of these statues would be in positions where they're just like, where they're like screaming their fucking head. That cat would be like claws out, fucking like.
I thought of that too, and maybe once they're in the waxy stuff, maybe they're posable afterwards. They'd have to be for that to be the case. Because I thought of that too. I'm like, that doesn't look right.
Okay, so you're assuming that this is more of like a waxy, maybe plasticine type material.
Yeah.
And they don't just come out as, All right, yeah, that probably makes more sense. All right, I'm
Yes.
glad we nailed that one.
Yeah.
That would've
We
kept
managed
moving.
to
movie's
make
making
a
sense.
thing make sense.
Yeah. There's literally 3 minutes left in this movie, and finally something's clicking.
Let's solve at least one issue.
Oh, yeah. But the speed at which our main villain, Prince Gunther, main villain recently, gives up is really quite jarring.
Yes.
Like, there is a very short battle, our good friend Ator, and almost like his first option, even before running away, Prince Gunther is like, into the drink I go with you, Hagen.
And he grabs poor Hargan, who's just sitting there, and it's just, like, this actor can't emote with this on his face, but you can tell the sheer confusion and panic in Hargan's face, where he's just like, wait, what are we doing? What's going on now?
Yeah, Hargan, who is the main strategist of this kingdom, was not consulted on this particular exit plan.
You, Ator, you can't kill me if I kill myself first, and I'm taking Gunther with me, or not Gunther.
Oh my God.
It's a real you can't fire me, I quit type situation here.
And then they have a like 30 seconds of like, haha, that was great. And then we smash cut after a smoke bomb to a picture of a laughing goblin who we don't know who it is.
I think I would bet almost anything that final shot, which the credits now roll over top, was a last-minute editing decision to hone in the fact that they were trying to sell this as a Troll 3 movie. Just the very last minute is all like, remember, this is about trolls. This is in the troll universe.
Absolutely. Could be Grindel having faked his own death. I wouldn't be surprised with that guy with all his dummy swords if he'd also had a dummy Grindel. That's
what he was doing outside this whole time.
He just cuts back and he's got a bunch of him. Well, I don't know, because I mean, not to be racist or anything, but apparently all goblins look the same in this universe, so they all have the same head, so.
They listen for voice differences.
But you're not kidding when you say, like, that movie just abruptly ends. That is, like, one of the most... There's Ator and Daenerys running off into the sunset together, and yeah, there's a goblin face. Credits roll.
Oh, man. I had a great time watching that movie. I had a great time. Like, the whole way through, just...
The whole way through? There are lots of segments where, like, it's just a shot of people running across a field.
Oh,
there
yeah,
is
yeah.
so much fucking
I
padding.
specifically was thinking of those running shots when I said that line, because they look so awkward trying to hop from grassy clump to grassy clump in a swamp while swinging a sword. It is hilarious to me to watch.
Yeah, that entire fight scene where they're ambushed by the people in the tall grass, no one knows what they're doing. Like, the marshland is so high, it's nearly impossible just to walk from one end of it to the other. And now, yeah, and they have to have this big complicated fight scene. It is very fun to watch, yes. And yeah, and there's just a general sort of awkwardness that goes along with the feeling that this all seems like it was all one take. Like, It doesn't seem like anyone decided to go back and say, you know what, just for safety, let's get one more crack at this. It was just like, great, moving on.
Even Hargan has a line that he flubs and is just kind of like in the movie for some reason.
But I love it.
Ator will be yours, princess, just as Daenerys is Prince Gunther's.
I love it. I loved everything about that character. It sounds like we're sneaking into the part of the podcast where we talk about whether or not we would recommend this movie. But before we do that, were there any specific bits, Brad, Jameson, that happened in this that we didn't mention that you wanted to highlight? The only thing that I wanted to say, we were just talking about the woman getting dipped into the material and turning into a statue. Sort of her argument for Prince Gunther. You know, he says like, I'm going to turn you into a statue, and then you'll be beautiful forever. And sort of her retort is, but statues can't talk. Lady, you can barely talk. We've been watching this entire movie, and you've barely been able to string together a competent sentence. So, not really working in your favor.
In your case, I think we're going to be okay with this. The only thing that really came out to me was, apparently it's impossible to get a stock sound effect of a crow.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, that is clearly a dude going, caw, caw!
But not bad. Like, I was like, well, that's a human for sure, but they're really giving her probably the best acting in the movie. That was good. The mythology here I really appreciated. A couple moments. Let's see. When she's saved after being suspended over the big waxy substance, I thought that was a fun moment because they just have this moment where she's clearly in pain being, like, dangled over a fiery pit. And they just have a moment to kind of laugh it off. I'm like, that's nice. Yeah. Have that moment of connection there. Seeing the humor in the situation.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember more Hargan lines. Just really, just a delight.
But that was what was so funny about Hargan is that he's not at all a quotable character. The thing that's funny about Hargan is this regular physics teacher voice coming out of a little tiny goblin character.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully that was him at the end credits.
I'm fine, everyone. I survived the bath. I'm fine. I'll be back for Ator 6. Return of Hargan.
Yeah. To the point of, like, where you guys were saying that this was all, like, a very one-take kind of movie. Given the history of this franchise, where, like, they quickly make these movies as soon as, like, a new Conan movie come out, these seem like a very reactionary kind of process of making these movies. This movie is the result of him not liking what they did with Ator 3. He's like, fuck it, like, I'll show them how to do Ator right. Like, come on, everybody. Do you get that? Okay, fuck it.
And the other thing that I also noticed, I looked this up while we were watching the movie. You said, I mean, we can clearly tell that they borrowed at least one goblin mask from the set of Troll 2. I looked it up. Troll 2 came out the same year as this movie. So, obviously, Troll 2 took a while to become the cult phenomenon that it was. So, them rebranding this movie as Troll 3 must have happened far after this movie was released.
Oh, yeah. Or one of them was stuck in development hell for years. Like, maybe Troll 2 was, like, in development for years and years. Whereas Troll 3, they just made it and released it within a week.
I wonder if there ever was, because I don't remember. My assumption is that Troll 2 went straight to VHS. You said this movie went straight to VHS. Yeah. I wonder who the first basement-dwelling schlock lover rented, like, I'm going to rent, like, the new garbage on VHS, I'm just going to watch Troll 2 and Ator 4 in the same week and had that moment of realization. Wait a second, there's some DNA shared by these movies? It must have happened. It must have been like a puzzle that they solved backwards.
The research that I found just said that it was the VHS distributor who, like, kind of made that connection. This wasn't, like, done by the studio to kind of recoup some losses. This was done by the people who are selling these videotapes that, oh shit, we can bundle these as a third sequel to this other movies and, like, I guess bundle them together.
Nice.
That's my assumption.
Nice. Lovely movie.
Yeah,
Lovely
so
movie.
would you recommend this movie to anyone, Bradley?
I would not recommend watching it on YouTube because a lot of the lines are bad enough to be worth hearing, and the sound mixing on the way we were watching it was a little, I feel like even the original cut's probably badly mixed, but I would say that this was a laugh-a-minute romp, and I would recommend it.
Like, fuck, I love this movie. I think this is, it's so stupid in times, and the fantasy babble is so, like, I can't fucking follow the plot of this movie, and it changes on a goddamn dime, but it's so cheap, and it's so fucking hilarious. I love that crap.
I couldn't follow what was going on at any point. I just remembered there's like a moment before he rescues the sleeping goddess where he finds, like, a room of treasure, and then he, like, grabs a handful of the treasure and he holds it up and says, "Gods, I offer you the greatest treasure in the land!" And then he puts the treasure down, and then he pushes a big stone block in front of it, and then that's never referenced again. What was that treasure room about? I don't know. That was a side quest that didn't go anywhere.
Oh, yeah. I know how that was, is someone at some point that sent him to this place said that he needed to go there to offer the treasure to the gods for something. But I think that was there somewhere. It was just hard to hear and hard to understand. But it never did go anywhere after that. He literally just pushed a dresser in front of the cave wall afterwards.
But if the treasure was already there, what good would it do offering it to the gods?
I guess the gods love human currency. That's the thing gods love more than anything. But it's not like it was
his treasure. It already existed in the cave. I don't know, because we could go down that rabbit hole even more.
He freed it.
I think it's like when you're playing Skyrim or whatever and you find this new treasure, but your inventory is full, so you have to like put it back until you dump some shit.
I'll go back to this later. Yeah. I don't know if I was as sweet on this movie as you two were. I wouldn't necessarily call it a laugh a minute like you did, Brad. I would call it maybe a solid laugh every 10 minutes at the very least. Again, yes, I would recommend not watching this the way we watched it. I would recommend either getting an Ator box set or potentially a Troll box. I don't know if a box set of the Troll movies exists that also throws this one in there. I haven't researched this at all, but my time on the internet, I have heard rumblings that there might be a Troll 4 out there. And then, of course, there is the wildly different animated remake with Justin Timberlake in it, but I don't think that. I think they went back to the drawing board on that one. I don't think you need to watch the earlier Troll movies to get the new ones. So, yeah, I don't know. Put some eyes on this. I wouldn't say rush out and watch it, but yeah, it's funny. Watch it for Hargan alone.
Yeah, maybe with friends. It is pretty damn. Don't watch it alone. I'd say definitely watch it with friends who are willing to make fun of it with you.
Yeah, at least check out the scene with the conjoined two-headed robot fight.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of watching movies with friends, Bradley Duffy, thank you so much for being the guest on this episode. We really appreciate it. Man. Let's take a minute to talk a little bit about you. You do many cool things. Right now, you are currently in a commercial that's a little bit of a viral hit. It certainly seems to be gaining some traction. I know the AV Club did an article on it, so that was very cool. Yeah, you're in a commercial. You can be kind of seen and definitely heard in a commercial for something called Omega Mart. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about what that is and what this commercial is like, because it's wild.
I'm pretty happy with the end result for sure of that commercial. It's Omega Mart, to give you a little context, is an art installation in Las Vegas that's opened by a company called Meow Wolf, and they have a couple of installations now. They're all very weird, and you kind of find secret rooms in these art installations to go see other exhibits. Concept of Omega Mart is that it's a supermarket that kind of feels wrong. And my understanding is that if you go there, you get like a little pass, an employee pass, and you can unlock these weird rooms and discover the dark, seedy story of this supermarket. But everything is kind of like, has a nostalgic 80s, 90s feel, but is somehow wrong. And so I'm an advertiser for this. I'm Willie Nelson, who is advertising Omega Mart, because I'm just an average everyday celebrity. And they deepfake Willie Nelson over top of my face in this commercial. So I'm not seen technically at all, except when it glitches purposefully between my face and Willie Nelson's face. I asked them on set, I'm like, hey, do you want me to do a Willie Nelson impression, guys? And they're like, no. The way you talk is great. So they definitely want it to feel wrong or fake. When we did that audition for that spot, casting didn't know what it was. They had no idea. So we kind of got brought in with some really vague directions and kind of winged it. I could kind of tell that they were going for an 80s, 90s vibe, but I didn't really know that they were going for
yeah, because I auditioned for the same commercial, and the script that I got was heavily redacted. They were using a different celebrity instead of Willie Nelson at that point. So yeah, it was one of those auditions I went in for. Well, that could have been fun. I have no idea what that's for. And then eventually seeing the full version later on, it's a great little 2-minute sort of avant-garde little mini movie. There's kind of hints of the Tim and Eric style of humor in it as well. And just as someone who, has known you for a while and is a fan of your work, it was very surreal for me to see your voice coming out of Willie Nelson's. Yeah, it's very fun. I highly recommend everyone check that out, and we'll include a link to the commercial in the episode so you can watch that as well. Brad, you also do a variety of other things. Taking a look at your IMDb here, there are 2 credits that I want to bring up here. In addition to you having your Marvel Comics card punched as the voice of the Trapster in Marvel Superhero Adventures.
Oh yeah, the Trapster. That's this guy's voice. Yeah.
Sounds a lot like Rocket Raccoon, to be honest.
You also, and I didn't know this until I looked this up earlier today, you were also the voice of Lego Ian Malcolm in Lego Jurassic World Legend of Isla Nublar.
I think that's my favorite credit. to be honest.
In the tradition of the late, great James Lipton, I wanted to ask, is Lego Ian Malcolm here with us now? And if he is, does he have an opinion on the movie that we just watched?
Okay, I'll do my best, because to give you a little history on that, even before session, I had to listen to Jeff Goldblum talking for an hour just on like a little iPod. I had to listen to him speaking and nothing else for an hour before going into session just to sound like him. Or I think I did a decent job in the show. You can watch it on Netflix, The Legend of Ethan Nublar. So I'm Ian Malcolm, the Jeff Goldblum character in that.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah, so there is a wonderful sort of time if you're feeling it. I think it's kind of in the... Now...
It's amazing.
Dude,
even that was amazing.
I
That was
really
great.
hope
I
that
love
came
that.
out well.
I had no idea that you had even done that, and the fact that it's on Netflix, I'm absolutely going to watch that once this recording is over, because that's hilarious. Yeah. Brad, do you have anything that you'd like to plug? Something that you've done that you'd like people to check out? Or barring that, do you have any recommendations, anything you've watched or listened to or absorbed recently that you would recommend people check out?
The one thing I kind of want to plug is a game that I'm playing right now, actually, if that's okay. I don't want to plug anything, and it is made here in Vancouver. I haven't worked on it or anything, but I just love it. It's called The Long Dark, and I think it really helped me getting me through a lot of the lockdowns that are going on here. It's kind of a Canadian
studio.
Hmm?
Buddy of mine works for that studio.
Oh yeah, it's kind of a Canadian survival game, but it's just so pensive and thoughtful and beautiful, and I think that's a game I'd like to plug for anyone who'd like to. You can get on Steam or Xbox or I think anything. I mean, I'm watching a lot of old stuff right now, so the stuff I would plug, I think everyone has had the chance to watch. I'm watching Westworld. I'm going through the old Doctor Who's. I'd at first had this idea that I was going to watch all the Doctor Who's starting in the original with the first season back from like the 50s, 60s.
That's a daunting task. Didn't they lose a bunch of those episodes?
They did, and they found a bunch, but they have audio recordings of most of the episodes that were lost, and they've gotten people to kind of animate or use photo stills from the production to fill those in.
Whoa.
Now, here's some of the things I didn't realize, is that those early seasons of the BBC, those are not 13 or even 20 episode seasons. Those are 50 episode seasons. And every other episode has to be educational based on the BBC's programming at the time. So they are dry! So
That's precisely why I've never gotten into Doctor Who, any version of it. There's just too much of it. People have said start with David Tennant. People have said start with Christopher Eccleston. I just can't. There's just too much of it, and there's too much backstory. I'll never catch up.
For me,
I've never
my
really
choice
bothered.
that I did after watching like 200 or so episodes of the old black and white stuff, I'm like, this is too much, and it's too dry.
Time to
So I
fast forward to
started.
the modern
I
era.
started with the modern era reboot with Christopher Eccleston, and those seasons are only 13 episodes. Super easy to get into. They do kind of explain a lot as if you'd never watched any before, so I thought that was a good place for me to jump back into it.
Great, and people can still see you as a crying passenger in the first episode of Snowpiercer.
Is it the first episode? I don't think it's the first, but I'm in
It's
the...
near the first. It's one of the first episodes.
I'm in
yeah.
the night car, and I'm just some guy who's being moved by a song that's playing. It's probably been, besides being Simon Pegg's body double in one of the Star Trek movies, I think it's probably the coolest set I've been on. But being on the Enterprise is by far the coolest credit, I think, or the coolest job I've had is just being on the Enterprise.
God damn, dude, you got like decent nerd cred between your Star Trek, your Marvel, and your
Marvel,
fucking Jurassic
yeah.
Park.
You're the
connections.
voice of Lego Jeff Goldblum. I mean, your nerd cred is high, buddy.
That's
It
great,
really
because
is.
I do so much day player work that the credits I do get, like the Ian Malcolm one, that are actually guest starring roles, sometimes I feel like I just am not doing enough. And I think all actors kind of have that feeling, because there's always more you could be doing, and there's always a level that's above you. And I think I've kind of gotten through that just by reminding myself that whatever level I'm at, there's always someone that wishes that I'm someone's next step. And sure, yeah, there's someone who's above me that's my next step for work.
Definitely.
Right on.
And I like to think we're a podcast that likes to celebrate the little wins as well as the big wins.
Yeah.
So, fantastic. Continue to wrap up here. Jameson, you got anything to plug or recommend this week?
I just want to plug once again that I did this last episode. The end of this month will be the 10-year anniversary of an animated project that I worked on called Gamer of Destiny. It was a feature-length thing I made in Flash completely in my spare time. I'm going to be hosting a watch party for it over Twitch around March 31st at 7 o'clock Pacific time. So swing on by if you want to watch it. I'll be there. I might be answering some questions. I'm trying to wrangle the original voice cast, but like they've all kind of gone on to do like pretty substantial voice work. So we'll see, but I'll be there. And we may be too late by the time this episode comes out to like throw this plug, but a friend of the show, Tashana Sahada, will be singing the national anthem at a upcoming Canucks game. I think that'll be March 22nd. So you go, girl. Proud of you.
Fantastic. What? Watch us launch this episode directly on like March 23rd. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Congratulations to Shauna. Yeah, so I have both a plug and a recommendation. Keeping on the theme of plugging the achievements of our past guests, we mentioned a few episodes back that past guest and friend of the podcast, Jenica Grinke, was about to launch a new podcast with her husband. That podcast is now launched, and I've listened to the first episode, and it's delightful. So that podcast, once again, is called Raised by the Movies with Jenica Grinke and James Avramenko. They are starting off with the Disney Renaissance. So they're doing Little Mermaid up to Tarzan, I think, is the last one on that. And again, the concept for their podcast is taking another look at the movies that we watched as children and sort of investigating and discussing the morals and the lessons that they might have taught us, and also waving into maybe some of the not so great lessons that these movies might have taught us. So I highly recommend that. That's on Spotify and perhaps other podcast platforms that you might listen to. I don't know, but I know it's on Spotify, so check it out there. And my recommendation, this is going to seem kind of like an odd recommendation because it is quite an old movie, but I recently watched for the first time, finally got around to watching 1991's Tony Scott's The Last Boy Scout. Have either of you seen that?
Yeah.
Bruce Willis, Damon Wayans, Mismatch Buddies, Shane Black wrote the screenplay, and it's got that smart, witty patter that
Shane
he's
Black.
known for. But the reason that I wanted to mention it here is that movie, Jameson, apparently is like a magnet for character actors who have appeared in movies that we have covered on this podcast. It's amazing how often it kept happening as I was watching it. That movie features the main bad guy is played by Noble Willingham, who played lovable sidekick Car Wash from Coward of the County.
Yeah.
His main henchman is played by Taylor Negron, who played Dr. Jacobs in Mr. Stitch.
Okay. Yeah.
A secondary henchman is played by Frank Collison, who we saw last episode as the weird lanky deputy in Camouflage.
Right, yeah.
The gun-toting football player from the beginning of the movie, of course, is played by Billy Blanks from Assault on Devil's Island. And playing himself as one of the football announcers, our old buddy Dick Butkus from Hamburger the Motion Picture.
Oh,
so I kept watching this, I'm all like, man, everyone is in this movie. It's wild. So that's sort of like a litmus test for us now to see who pops up. That movie's great. Damon Wayans stops a sniper's bullet by throwing a football at it. It's basically a perfect movie. It does lose points because Bruce Willis uses a gay slur, and the movie does end by blowing up two dogs. So I'm not a fan of either of those things, but other than that, perfect movie. The Last Boy Scout, if you haven't watched it, it's on Stars currently right now.
Give that
podcast
a watch.
that's a fun
good movie for fans of our podcast, if we indeed have any fans.
For the three of them, yes. Yes, Brad.
Oh, I want to just, maybe you could edit it in. I thought of another recommendation that you could throw in at the end
Yes, absolutely,
of
great.
Oh, I thought of a TV show that's somewhat recent that you should definitely get into because they've got more seasons that will be coming up, is Barry on Crave.
Love it.
Wow.
Love it. Great show.
I am blown away. I've never seen a more accurate representation of just the potential flakiness of actors while being totally earnest. And Anthony Carrigan as NoHo Hank is such a treat.
He's phenomenal. Yeah.
Both a ray of sunshine and a really dark, threatening presence at the same time. I don't know how he pulls it off.
Yeah, that guy's great. I love him.
I haven't seen that show. I've heard great things about that show. I've heard great things about that actor that you just mentioned. And like having seen a couple of clips, like, yeah, he's gonna be my fucking first choice when they reboot Superman. And you need a new Lex Luthor, go with this guy.
Oh my god. But it's everyone in that cast fulfills their roles to perfection. Henry Winkler, Sarah Goldberg, Stephen Root, of course.
Oh yeah, the great Stephen Root.
But they all really walk that line between being likable and unlikable and just shitty people. They walk it so well. I think as an ensemble cast, it's obviously Bill Hader gets the lion's share of the attention for it, but I think the whole cast is quite strong.
There's an episode in that second season where it's primarily Barry and Stephen Root's character trying to track down this one character, and then later on they have to track down his daughter. That one episode alone is the best Coen Brothers movie that they have made in like the past 5 years. That is an incredible episode of television. I believe Bill Hader directed that one, so yeah, very excited for more Barry. Can't wait until that comes back.
Oh, I'm not. Absolutely. I mean, one of the shows on Crave, which is not a lot of reasons to get Crave, but there are some.
Yeah. If you want to shell out the extra cash for the HBO stuff, yeah, Crave is kind of worth it, but yeah, it is yet another streaming platform. Well, thank you very much, Brad Duffy, for being on the show. That was Quest for the Mighty Sword, aka Ator 4, the Hobgoblin, aka Troll 3, inexplicably. If you enjoyed this episode, please have your data mined over on our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter at @the_F_is_this. For info on when new episodes drop, follow us on Instagram at @the_F_is_this_podcast. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, we also have a YouTube page where we also post episodes, but with pictures. And now, with our episode-specific catchphrase, Jameson Rafter.
There wasn't a lot to choose from in this. Could we just, like, pipe in one of, like, the awful line readings of Day and Era? Okay,
Of Day and Era or Hargan. I mean, like, I feel like we need to go out on a Hargan line.
I don't have a reason to follow you anymore. No, wait, no, that's the other guy. It was, to find our way back to the middle world.
Back to find the path back to the middle world.
The episode's over now.
I ask only to serve you still more, my prince. I want to lift the burden of government from your shoulders, so that you can serenely dedicate yourself to the beautiful Day and Era and to your works of art.
Your wish shall be granted, Hargan.